Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us this morning. We are going to go ahead and get rolling. I am Meg Mara. I lead the Employee Engagement and Communications Practice Group here at Borshoff, and I will be moderating today's discussion. We have a fantastic guest that many of you know, but I will introduce Terra in just a minute. But first, wanted just to say welcome to Shoff Chats. If this is your first Shoff Chat, we recently started this forum as a way to really just stay connected with our networks during this very strange time of not being able to gather safely in person. And the intent of these discussions is really just to provide an opportunity for all of us to come together with some industry peers and share experiences and challenges and really just hear from one another about what we're seeing and how we're responding to what's happening in our industries. So we do plan on continuing these chats past whatever time it is when organizations are returning to office life. So we will share some information at the end about where you can find details for these future sessions. You all joined muted, by the way, but we do hope to have some great interactive discussion today. Terra will open it up kind of at various points for questions or observations, but please feel free also to use the chat function to do that. You can either use the raise your hand action or type in things directly in the chat, and we will kind of address those as in the order that we receive them. We will also have a recording of today's session in the form of a blog post that we will send around in a few days. So if you or someone on your team or someone that wasn't able to join would find a replay to be valuable, we will share it that way. But we're going to go ahead and get started. I will introduce Terra. We are very fortunate to be joined by Terra Doyle. She is Senior Director of Talent Acquisition at Roche. Terra has spent the last 17 years holding key talent acquisition leadership roles in global multinational organizations. Her expertise is ensuring that an organization's recruitment strategy is aligned to help drive stakeholder value by achieving key business objectives. And her experience is improving efficiency in the recruitment process, ensuring quality delivery with both internal clients and external candidates, and running global projects, all while driving high-performing teams. Terra holds a bachelor's degree in business administration with a concentration in marketing and management from Wichita State University. So welcome, Terra.
Thank you.
And before we jump in to our questions, Terra, just acknowledging that unquestionably this is a very challenging and intense time for people in human resources roles, people in internal communications roles, right? These roles happen to be a lot of our audience today. So certainly there is just some camaraderie among all of us that have joined and in what our organizations are facing. But before we get to some COVID specific questions, Terra, I would just love if you could please share a little bit about your role at Roche and kind of just touch on what, in your perspective, makes Roche Indy a unique place.
Yeah, thank you, and super happy to have all of you on the call. So my role is a head of talent acquisition for our affiliates. So I run all really recruitment operations and strategies for North American diagnostics. Roche is really divided between, say, diagnostics and pharmaceutical. Our North American headquarters are here in Indianapolis. So I manage the team that not only is responsible for doing the hiring within our site here locally, but also all of our field support and sales teams. In addition, we work really closely and collaboratively with our other affiliates, as we call them, within the US, as we're really trying to also have a more global approach to how we recruit, how we attract talent, our processes, our operations. So we're in the middle of a transformation, which is really exciting. But when you look at my role, the team is responsible for finding and hiring talent. We also are responsible for all talent marketing activities. That also includes our university recruitment and early in career strategies alongside our talent management team that is a part of that. But at the end of the day, we're trying to find great people and find really good opportunities. What makes Roche special? Gosh, I feel still like a newbie. I've actually been at Roche for just over 2 years now. I hit my 2-year anniversary when we went into lockdown. Feels like it was yesterday, though. I think that Roche, for me, was my first full-time entrance into a healthcare environment or biotechnology. So I think I really didn't appreciate and underestimated what the power of a mission of a company could be. And so more than anything, and especially now, if I didn't realize it before, I definitely realize it now, how unique and special it is, the business that we're in and what we deliver to the world, patients, obviously our customers, and the focus that Roche has on its people. And I worked for a lot of companies where they do a pretty good job, and I've worked or seen some and helped supported businesses that maybe don't do it extremely well, and Roche does it extremely well. I've been very happy and pleased with how we show up, what our culture is. We live our cultural values, and just like any company, things come into play and new strategies exist, and just how I think we react and really ultimately keep in mind what our purpose and our 10-year vision is. It's encouraging to me. So I think it's really special, one, just the culture and environment that we have. And I know we'll get into COVID in a minute, but just a specific example is that just resonates that recently, every year we're fortunate to have like an employee appreciation event here locally. And obviously this year we're not having that, but they took the money that was going to be a part of that and reallocated funds back into the community and back into organizations that are really dedicated to help support what's going on right now. And that's such a feel good, right? I'm really fortunate. Like I said, I drink the juice. I'm a really big fan. I think it's awesome. And I love really the investment in the campus that they have and really their commitment to the city. Not only from employment and what we offer, but also just in general, what we give back to the community. So I don't know, I think that would probably be it in a nutshell.
Yeah, thank you. And I know, Terra, we've been very privileged to work with Roche over the years. So it's great to hear you talk about it in that way. And so the first question really is, and I will take a minute to set this up, right? Because in our first Shoff Chat, we briefly touched on this idea that I thought was really timely and worth exploring more. So we'll start with that today. And hopefully this will resonate with some of you, some of you that have joined us today too. The fact that we have thought so much about the war for talent, right, over the last 10 years, and we have seen the impact that it has had on employer brand, on corporate reputation, on talent recruitment strategies, and now suddenly, right, we find ourselves in this economic reality where unemployment is at double digits, and it's expected to remain that way for at least the remainder of the year. And I have to assume that it's very optimistic to assume that we'll see rapid recovery there. So our thinking last time was, is it possible that we are seeing this war for talent dissolve right before our eyes? And will organizations feel like they no longer have to or shouldn't focus so much on building strong employer brands, investing in the employee experience, et cetera, because they simply don't have to be as competitive, right, as they were in terms of what their employee value proposition is. So last time we heard from this group that we thought, no, with today's environment, it may make it that job seekers will be even more discerning, than they were previously. And not only that, but they will look directly to a company's response to COVID-19. Did they prioritize people over profits when they're making decisions about where they want to work? So my question for you, Terra, is what are you observing, and have you been having these what happens now discussions with colleagues or thoughts of your own?
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think it's a great question. And I think even going into COVID, companies were really trying to figure out, do we continue forward with our employment branding tactics, or do we need to really step back and say, now's not the right time. We need to be cognizant that things are happening and things are shifting. And we don't want to say, how awesome we are and how we've got these opportunities when maybe others aren't going to be able to really kind of be a part of that. So I actually saw a lot of companies just kind of pausing their efforts. And now I think they're circling back to say, was that the right strategy? For a couple of reasons. I think first and foremost, kind of the realization, and I wasn't a part of the last chat, is the second part that you said there was really impactful, which is, yes, there's always going to be war for talent. Just because there's more talent out there, it doesn't mean that, one, maybe it's the right talent that fits what your organization needs or what they would be looking for in employment. So what you're seeking might still be the same. The pool is just larger, but you hit the nose on the head, which is people are going to very much look and evaluate what's happening and how people react, because especially now in the marketplace, candidates want that culture. They want their environment. So if you're not talking your employment brand of what you're doing, they are going elsewhere to find out what it is. So if you're not telling your story, then they are just going to others and somebody else is telling your story for you. And they're going to be, I think, critical, and I think they should. Meaning, I think that they're going to need to look at not only what was the response to COVID, because this is, that's a unique situation. I mean, who would have ever thought that a pandemic would, one, just come up and really impact the strategies? But what you see is that it's really showcasing either those that are rising up and are really able to embrace and put their employees first, and those that, I know it does sound harsh, but you said it, is kind of putting the profits before the people. And whether that's really the intent, that's what's going out in the marketplace. So to me, the answer to your question is fairly simple. I think that companies will probably even need to spend more post the pandemic. And I don't think it's a matter of look to see what we've done. And, I'm going to celebrate the fact that maybe we didn't furlough people and we didn't, cut jobs. I don't think that that's the right brand or message. It's more, what is important to you as a business? What are your drivers? What are you focusing on? That probably hasn't shifted through the course of the pandemic for the companies that really have an important and purposeful strategy. And that way you kind of control what that message is. So I think you're going to probably see an uptick in what that is. And I think that it's going to be telling the story of who we are, not even maybe what we do, but who we are as a people, as a group, as a community, as a culture. And that to a degree is different. Now, one thing that I wanted to bring up also as a thought, and this I would be curious to get the opinions, hopefully people come off mute for this, is what's happening currently right now. So you do see a lot of great things happening in the midst of all this right now that I think is encouraging. And I think it's showcasing what true community impact can be. The one thing that I have seen with all of this is that we have organizations that maybe in the past competed for that talent and they were trying to drive their own employment brand messages. And now you see a lot of people coming together and they want to have almost a similar message that we're in this together. Ultimately, we want to get people back to work, or we want to offer opportunities for individuals. And so this whole community group, like these kind of chats, they're happening more frequently. And it's unfortunate that a pandemic had to create that, but I think it's going to be a really strong result. And you're going to see a lot more synergy. I think you're going to see people working together differently. And when I say people, I mean organizations. And so I almost think that people's employment brand and EVPs might shift throughout all of this, because they're going to really recognize, maybe I don't want to be in a silo, but now I have more of a community focus, and what can that mean? Because that is what talent individuals or employees or people who are looking for employment might want to look for. But that's my opinion. I'd be super curious if people feel differently. And I know on the call we have people in HR, but we also have people that are early in career. I know we've got people that are local. We have some that are in other cities. So I would love to see if anyone kind of feels different with what's happening right now.
And I will say too, hearing you say that, Terra, as people are maybe thinking of raising their hand or questions they want to put in the chat, you have to wonder if we were experiencing an economic crisis for some other reason, right? Would your answer be different, or is it this unique moment in our history where people are being more, they're seeing organizations and people and communities and individuals just be a little more human, and would it be different if we were experiencing a crisis for another reason? It's just very interesting to think about.
Meg, that's a good point. I've heard this several times, and it's keeping the human in human resources. You forget that because people come up with all sorts of fancy names for HR, but really it is about the people and culture, or human, but not losing that connect point regardless of the reason. That to me will be the ultimate deciding factor for people and organizations moving forward. Any brave souls? Nobody ever wants to be the first one, right, to come off chat.
That's okay. We have some other, I think, thought starters here. Others, Tammy.
Hi. And I heard you earlier, Tara, but I was on mute, and I said hello, but you didn't hear me. No, I as I'm talking to both talent but also our clients, I mean, I keep saying the same thing. We didn't grow any talent over the last 9 weeks. So we are still going to be in the same situation that we were before the pandemic hit. Yeah. It's just going to maybe take a little bit longer for companies to start feeling that pain from a talent perspective.
Agreed.
But I do think, as I'm talking to individuals that are looking for new opportunities, whether they've been furloughed or still currently employed, they are taking a little extra time to consider not only the opportunity and where that will take them in their career, but the organization as well. So I think that mindset has certainly changed.
Yeah, no, that's really good input. And I think that what you see too now are, it's almost forcing people in some instances to say, is this the time where I want a career change too? Do I want to go explore new things? Do I want to maybe get out of the market? Do I want to go back to school? Do I want to retire? I mean, it's just, it really changes the game and puts thoughts in people's minds just because of the situation. So where we may think this pool is vast, it could shrink just by proxy of that alone, of people coming out of the workforce. Anything's possible. Oh, was someone saying something?
Hey Tara, this is Adam. I'm curious as to how you feel like the need to be physically present in, say, local in Indianapolis is going to change now that we've all been now working, successfully remotely for several months. Like, do you see that the talent pool is going to be bigger because companies are going to be more willing to, say, let somebody live in another market and work?
Yeah, I think that's a really valid question, and one that I know at Roche we talk about constantly. Couple of things on that. One, it's, companies are investing. We're no different in, our brick and mortar, our campuses, these beautiful facilities on site. So I don't think that ever goes away. Like, I think there always is a subset. There's just an energy that you have. There's a collaboration that is just easier when you're live. However, if things shift where now conference rooms maybe aren't the same capacity, or maybe they're not even used anymore, it shifts how that looks. So you have to adapt. I think that organizations are going to have to consider and take a look at people being productive, less time on the roads. You hear all the statistics, right? So you don't have the commute time. You've got people that are being productive faster. There's better work-life balance in many instances. All the reverse side of that is you have to watch that because it also never shuts down. So I think the reality is companies are going to have to think about that. And I think candidates are going to demand it. Where in the past it was, hey, look, I'm really interested maybe in virtual. I can do it. And companies would say, no, this really needs to sit in the location. Now we're proving that's not the case. So I think it's going to be split, Adam, is my sense. I think some companies will be open and willing to look at that. And others might kind of try to go back to a place, at least to a degree, where they're still investing in their on-campus representation. So I personally think it'll be a blend of both. Maybe a higher likelihood, especially at more of the executive senior levels, where you'll see really that likelihood of being on site. But the rest working in a virtual way, and also in probably a less cost way for employers, which is obviously a really big positive too. Are there other people out there that are having those same discussions within your organizations now?
I have a related kind of question to that. And you talk about the Roche, beautiful Roche Indy campus, right? And you always have had a combination of there's corporate office employees there at that campus, and there's also non-wired deskless employees, whatever we want to call them. And of course, hiring for those different roles has always required a different approach, right? But we've been talking about perhaps we're going to see a shift in employer brand strategy as a result of all of this. But can you talk a little bit more about how executing your current strategy has shifted from a, we talk about from a tactical perspective, remote candidate screening, remote onboarding, like what are those kind of tactical shifts that you've had to make? What are the challenges there? And I'm curious to see if the people on the call too, strategy may be shifting, but the way you're executing your current strategies has to have shifted. What are the challenges and opportunities and things you're seeing within that?
Yeah, I think the tactical is driving the strategy to have to happen, which normally isn't the case, right? It's you define the strategy and then you operationalize and execute. But the reality is that people had to adapt so quickly to turn things virtual, which is a great example. Virtually on board, virtually complete background checks, all the things that used to have to happen just by signing, real life papers. So I think just by proxy of turning everything that way, now it's, hey, this actually works. Maybe it's more effective. Maybe it takes time out of process. There was a really great example. I believe it was CVS that was doing a lot of hiring. Big numbers. And they came together within the course of I think a couple of hours, came up with a way that what used to be like a 15-day hiring process could convert it to 24 hours. So why wouldn't you do that more continually? So I think just what was an immediate reaction or need or what was happening in the market is now making companies say, look, I think we've probably had fluff or space to take things out, not specific to hiring, but it really is applicable across the board. It could be in how your call centers are operating. Again, functions and roles that you never would have thought could really be effective in a house, living room somewhere. It's changing the way they look. So I know it is for us, 100%. We've tried to expedite for us some longer term play strategies and tools and technologies that were on the roadmap, and we're pulling them up because we know that it's going to make us better and more efficient. For example, video interviewing technology. We're just not meeting people live right now, right? So we're turning everything virtual from a recruiting standpoint. But the cool part about that is that there's a big significant branding opportunity there. That's a huge part of it. There's a landing page, and it's where candidates find your story, and you might be able to share any of the clips. Actually, the Borshoff helped us to create that kind of tells the employment stories. It's another place for candidates to go seek out information. And so what really is a tool or a technology to help improve a process also now continues to have imprints on your brand out to the marketplace. So that's what we're seeing. And with a lot of the other people that I've been on calls with, I'm finding it be the same. So I think you would ask the question, again, not forcing anyone to talk, but I would be curious if there's anyone else out there that is really kind of having these same conversations, and if you've done any nuggets, because we're always looking to learn on what else is being done out there and that's working really well.
I can speak to that. I work for Car Global, and we just built our brand new headquarters in July, and we're now kind of creating a work from home playbook because we are seeing the more efficient work coming from that. And so they're kind of starting to present the option of, if you can't do your job from home and you want to do your job from home, we're going to set up the people managers with guidelines as to how that would look, best case scenarios. And but there are some people who are really I want to go back to the office. I want to get back in there as soon as possible. I miss the people aspect. I miss the mindset of sitting at my desk. This is where I'm at from 9 to 5, and I get everything done. I don't have to worry about laundry, cooking, or anything. So it's the conversations are starting, and I think come more July, we'll see how this plays out, but that's where we're at.
No, I love that, Jen. And what I would be curious about too is, our company's going to get to a point where they say, we're open, you choose, and now they kind of have a blend? Or is it one where they say, hey, look, we're kind of going to get back to, we're going to define that only maybe these subsets can have this work from home philosophy, and we're going to have people come back, and now we see potential turnover because that doesn't work, or someone doesn't feel comfortable or safe. there are so many unknowns, specifically because this one is a very personal element. So I think, anyway, super curious. That was great to share. And I think it's going to continue to be something we're all going to learn from.
Yeah, I have to think we're going to see some sort of hybrid approach to all this, you know, when we're going back. And another follow-on question for you, Terra, is when you do have the option someday in the future to do things one way or the other, you talk about all this innovation that is happening right now. Will you choose, Terra, to keep doing things virtually because you talk about the wonderful branding opportunity and kind of the additional benefits that you've been seeing from taking things virtual? Are you going to continue that even when you have the option not to?
Are you talking about me personally, or just in the market?
Personally or philosophically, I'm curious as to, you know, and we talked about this a little bit last time too, like all of these things that we're having to do right now that we realize maybe I'm going to continue doing them. So yeah, curious what you think about that.
It's interesting, and I have I might have a different view on it because, interestingly enough, for the vast majority of my career, I've worked from home. Going into an office is actually unique for me. I think maybe 5 of my more years than I'll care to admit that I've been working. So I really figured when this came, I'm like, you know what, I've been here, done this. I got my setup. I'm good. But I miss all those things you were talking about, or someone had mentioned, right? And that's just, it's the collaboration. It's just walking down the hall and having, hey, quick conversation with someone that now I have to be more intentional about reaching out and creating those connections. So I think that the short answer is you can absolutely make it work, but what you have to make sure is that you still have those connections and the opportunities and the ability to still have, say, that culture or whatever is unique and special for your organization. You still have to figure out how to make that work in a virtual way. And you have to be intentional about it. It just doesn't happen now. There needs to be different conversations. So the great part is that traditionally, if you're missing it, others are too. So it's just something where it needs to have a different conversation to now say, well, then what are we going to do about it? And how are we going to have those? And it's probably more frequent. I feel like there's more frequent meetings, let's say, but those meetings are impactful and they're meaningful and they're via video, or they're in a way where people can still feel as much as they can be close. I get less worried about the work being done, to be frank. I think that, if there are folks that can't work, I mean, we've got labs. As an example, that would be very difficult to, have a Bunsen burner happen in the back or, something far more advanced than that you just can't do. But if it's kind of your standard work that can be done, I think it's getting done. I think people have pride in their work. They want to deliver. It's more the personal connection part and really being able to live and breathe still the values that is a big reason why people still join, stay, and move for different employment opportunities.
Mm-hmm. I know even at Borshoff, we've been having this conversation of, or at least joking, are we ever going to have just a phone call ever again? It feels strange to think about going back to a scenario where you're not video chatting, and that's become, the everyday norm. So, but I think we'll try to keep this to about 40 minutes today, and we have about 10 minutes left. So I think we have room or time for one more question. And I've always been interested to hear how this works at different organizations, but especially now, given that a lot of our audience are internal or corporate communicators and HR roles, all of these roles can be seen as we're the torchbearers essentially for the employer brand, for the employee experience. And we all know by now employee experience really is at the center of a lot of what we do and why we do it. But can you tell us, Terra, a little bit about what's the regular collaboration and interaction that you have with the communications function at Roche? How do your departments typically work together? And has that collaboration and partnership changed, increased, improved, or not, as a result of COVID-19?
Yeah, no, I think that's a really valid question. And it's interesting because, as I mentioned, within Roche, we have, different affiliates all over the world. And to a degree, I think they might be different in how they work. And say I might be because I don't represent, say, Turkey, right? So, and it's my experience that, especially in the area of like talent marketing, employment branding, whatever you technically call it, is that relationship is different. So some have a stronger foothold in the communications where they really take ownership and drive the strategy. And then in others, you have it really falling within the HR space. So on behalf of Roche, we recognize that it is an incredibly close collaboration that takes place. And I know I'm fortunate to have Amberly Peterson on this call with me today. And when you talk about our affiliate and what we make work, we're a team together. It doesn't happen without both of us. And I think that that's incredibly important. I mean, I think you need to define accountabilities, right? Who really ultimately is set to deliver it. But there is a very close partnership for us. So for us, it's been from the onset, but I would say even more so now. And certainly, Amberly, you can correct me if you feel different. But simply because there's so much going on right now because of COVID. So it's a matter of, again, what are we doing on the talent marketing side to attract talent, but also just the branding in general. What's happening in our organization? How are we celebrating our essential workers that are on the front lines every day right now, going into these healthcare systems in the midst of COVID and doing their job, where the rest of us might be here sitting in our home offices. Like there's a story there to tell, and it's not being told because I and my team are trying to find talent. It's just to say, we want to celebrate this. This is who we are. This is what we do. And so we really need the communications team to help with what that story looks like and what is that message. They have purviews that maybe we don't, and we have insight and strategies that they don't. So I think we're definitely, short answer to your question, we're working differently today, more frequently, more conversations, more going out, because again, we're trying to control that story and also just kind of sell our messages. But for us, it's incredibly an important partnership. Yeah, so that's that. So again, Amberly, if you have anything else, feel free to jump in. But I feel strongly about it.
Yeah, I think that's true. I appreciate our partnership. I think that we work well together, and I think we worked well together before, but we're figuring out new ways to work together virtually that we didn't have to do before. But I agree that it seems like Terra and I are talking once a day at least. So we're very lockstep with one another right now.
Yeah. But again, it kind of gets back to what I was saying at the beginning, which is if you don't tell your story, someone else is telling it for you. So like the more that you can really control that or really kind of get an understanding and share that out in whatever method it may be for you, whether that's social media or digital channels, whether that's just what's on your website or even just these kind of conversations where you're going out in the market and talking to like-minded individuals. Just being intentional about it and having that partnership is, I think it could be a game changer for many organizations.
Yeah, like I said, I'm always interested to hear how this works because sometimes, as you're saying, Terra, it's by design, right? The collaboration is very, it's intentional, right? And then in some organizations, it's more siloed than that. So what do those organizations need to do to get that alignment if it's not already kind of baked into their process or in the way that their organizations operate?
Well, and the thing that I should say too is, I mean, we're a large organization. So, I mean, we've got, in fact, I think I even have on the call, like our head of talent marketing. I won't make him talk, but I'm super excited he's on. There's an expertise there, but we're a big company, so we can have that. I often think about the smaller organizations where you've got an HR person wearing all of these hats, and what does he or she do? And how are they able to get that? So again, you may not have a comms department, but you know what? There's probably people in your network or your sphere of influence or that are even outside your organization that can help. So I think companies are thinking differently about that too. So how can I now expand my network in this crazy time to be able to help? And what resources do you have? And again, there's a lot of knowledge sharing that's happening. And I think that's incredibly important. And what I'm loving is that I'm seeing bigger companies like a Roche or whomever really, but offering those. And that's just, again, that's pretty special. That does not always happen. So now is the prime time to capitalize on those conversations and those networks that people aren't today.
Yeah, so thank you. We're about 2 minutes, 3 minutes before we want to close. So I will just say, open it up to anyone that's joined us. Any questions for Terra or even observations, anything you want to share about what you're seeing? We probably have, a couple minutes to chat about one more question if anybody has anything. Otherwise, we can wrap, but we'll give folks one last opportunity.
super
Hey, Terra, I
quiet
have another
today.
question for you. Just,
Yeah.
recognizing that Roche is a global company, obviously you've got colleagues around the world, but your headquarters is in Europe. And given the fact that Europe's about a month ahead of us relative to COVID and reentry, what are you hearing and seeing as it relates to, employer brand or what's ahead for us from a talent standpoint?
No, that's a good point. And yeah, we're learning all the time what's happening. Our friends in China are back to work more. We're starting to see the go back in Switzerland, which is where, for those of you who don't know, is where we're headquartered in Basel. And so we're learning from them what that means and what that looks like. And then we're trying to figure out and impart them, well, what does that mean? I tell you, we've got a very active Google Plus community from our talent marketing group, and they're really doing a fantastic job of sharing what that looks like. And it varies because, again, for us, in a lot of these different geographies, kind of their needs are different. You would think in theory they're the same, but there's still a very geographical difference of what people are seeking or what the story or the brand is for that particular affiliate or location. And so what they're doing is they're sharing it so you can at least learn best practice on maybe messaging or what channels are having impact, what's getting impressions and hits. And for us, it is so important to leverage our global resources and community. In fact, for those that don't, and that certainly happens in some instances, they are behind. They're behind the 8 ball because it takes a village. And with us, we're really trying to figure out a way of how we have a more collective global brand instead of kind of these individual silos. So kind of a longer answer than what you asked, Adam, but it's a work in progress for us. But the important piece is to learn for what they're doing. I think that we are learning that there are some that are going pretty seamless and getting back pretty quick, and there are others that are a little more slow moving, more because of the continued concerns. So while they may go, there's a lot of start stops. So we rely on that, and it's important to get that message from our peer groups.
And thank you, Terra, for the wonderful perspective and discussion today. I think we're gonna wrap, like I said, try to keep these to about 40-45 minutes. We will be sharing, again, a post that recaps our discussion to our Borshoff website, and it'll include a recording of today's session. So we will let everybody that joined us know when that is live. And you can also find information on future Shoff Chats on our website too. We're going to post a link to that page in a minute in the chat. So we are still working on scheduling next month's session. So please just check back for details, or if you follow us on social media, we'll be posting updates there too. And I think importantly, if you want to suggest a topic for Shoff Chats that you want to see us cover in the future, or have a guest in mind for us, please feel free to share with us. We want to make sure that these, like we said, we plan on continuing these in the future, and we want them to be a valuable resource for all of the folks in our network. So please feel free to suggest future guests and topics. And just thanks again, everybody, for joining. Hoping everyone stays safe and healthy. We will be in touch, and everyone should have a wonderful day. Again, thank you, Terra.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great finish to your week.
All right, bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.